If you feel comfortable, please welcome to use the chat to introduce yourself and to tell us who you are, where do you come from.
So at 7 o'clock, I will do just an official welcome to the group and then turn it over to the two of you. And then Chris will help with if we have any technology aspects, but I think it looks like we're all good. And are you okay with Chris recording it?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, because we need to just remind them that if they don't want to have their pictures on, to turn their cameras off.
Welcome, Kathy. Welcome, Caroline. Welcome, Maria. I don't know about everybody else, but we had snow here today in Toronto.
Oh, I know. It's like yesterday was a little unkind, wasn't it?
Well, it's still snowing today.
I know it was. I looked at my patio window and went, no, stop doing that.
Yeah.
Welcome, Danielle and Kimberly. And welcome, Jane. So we have people right now from British Columbia, quite a few people from Ontario, and Jane from Manitoba.
Oh, that's good. And we had somebody from Great Britain this afternoon.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it was. Okay. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. So I would like to get started. Chris, did you want to introduce yourself first, and then I'll take over from there?
Absolutely. I'm Chris Metropolis. I'm with the TDSB Eco Schools program, and I'm one of the certification specialists there that deal with the Eco Schools program within all of the TDSB.
Perfect, thank you. And just to make sure that everybody is in the right session, this session is Reconnecting with Nature, Action Research on Nature-Based Learning in the Kindergarten Program. So that's the session that you're in, just to double check to make sure, because I know there's a lot of links. So I'm Sheila Rhodes. I am I've been on the planning committee for this conference for a long time now, because it was sort of delayed. So it's like, but anyway, it's been a really interesting experience working with everybody over the last little while and turning it into a virtual program as well. So welcome everybody, welcome, bonjour, Annie. And these are just a slide to show you some of the sponsors for this conference that we're very grateful for. We also would always like to start with our land acknowledgement. And I just want to indicate that because all of us are coming from different places, we are using the land acknowledgement for the Toronto area, because that's sort of where the conference is located officially. But please be thinking to yourself where your territory is. Maybe if you want to drop that in the chat box so that we can acknowledge the other territories that we're situated on across Canada and in other parts of the world as well. So I'm going to acknowledge that we are on this treaty territory. We acknowledge the traditional territory upon which the conference is being hosted. For many thousands of years, the Huron-Wendat and the Petun First Nations, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit have sought to walk gently on this land. This territory is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, as well as with the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe allied nations to peacefully share and care for the lands and resources around the Great Lakes. These acknowledgement signals our desire to seek a new relationship with the original peoples of this land, one based on honor and deep respect, and it is a starting point to remind us to all enact this work in our personal and professional lives. So thank you. As I said, that's the land acknowledgement. I happen to live on that territory as well. Otherwise, I would be including my territory as well. I'm in Mississauga. So thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just a couple of points. We are going to be video recording this. So if any of you do not want to be included on that, then just please make sure your cameras are off so that you won't have your image on the screen as well. And both Chris and I are going to be monitoring the chat. So during the session, If you've got any questions, the two presenters can either answer during the session or at the end of the session. It's probably a little bit easier, but we will certainly be monitoring those as well. And again, at the end, the presenters will be sharing lots of links with you today, so lots of opportunities to gather new material. So I'd like to welcome our two presenters. So Hongliang Hu has been working for 20 plus years in educational settings and holds a Master of Education and a Master of Arts. She has her specialist qualification in environmental education. As an early childhood educator, she has been conducting action research in nature-based and environmental education in the kindergarten program. And our second presenter is Patricia Heibein. And Patricia has been a teacher in the TDSB for 17 years and holds a specialist qualifications in reading, special ed, and environmental ed. She has been conducting action research into how nature-based learning deepens children's nature connection and creates attitudes of stewardship and sustainability in young children. So thank you for the two of you to present to our group this evening. And I am going to turn off my mic and my camera and turn.
Oh, thank you so much, everybody. I'm Hongliang. So we're going to present Reconnecting with Nature action research on nature-based learning in the kindergarten program. This is me. I have been dreaming about I'm a butterfly flying around the world. Patricia, you can say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
So let me introduce what I'm going to do. We have already did an acknowledgement, but I will introduce an art piece to you. So we are going to introduce you what is nature-based learning, and why action research and research process. So you are going to have two interactive activities to do. Then I will explain my action research in my classroom. Patricia will talk about her action research. The last part, you are going to have an interactive breakout room activity to talk about it, the sharing and discussion. So then after that, we are QA part. The last one, you will have a reflection form to fill in form, and I have a resource PDF, and you can take it home and take away to take a look at. So here's the art piece. It's Ojibwe artist Jason Adair painted a tree of life to show Happy Earth Day, all a life giver. The 7 flowers in this piece represent the 7 sacred teachings: honesty, humanity, truth, or courage, wisdom, respect, and love. The 4 lines in the inner detail, all of the 4 directions, the Lu represent balance and harmony. So we have already did an acknowledgement. So I go to next page. Patricia, you will talk about this one. Then I will pulling out the Menti, the page for everybody to interact activity.
Great. If you're here visiting us tonight and you're attending this workshop, then you're interested in nature-based learning. And so what we want to know from you is, in your imagination and in your experience, what is nature-based learning? And what do you know nature-based learning to be? Because as we talk about nature-based learning and this year's focus at the conference being urban, and what that looks like in a city, sometimes that looks very different from school to school or environment to environment, because we have to adapt to our schoolyards and what we have access to. So if we can move on to the next slide, what we're going to ask you to do is to go to www.menti.com and type in the code 7244-4448. And when we do that, you're going to be asked to type in 4 words that you think of when you are thinking about nature-based learning. So what comes to your mind? We'll give you a minute or 2 to do that.
Yeah, take your time to go to menti.com and then type right the code. Type right what words come to your mind. Then the words will come out to create a word cloud in this slide. Okay, I have already see that playing in the dirt, exploring, engagement, natural senses, and weather, fun, play, and sensory, and spontaneous, touching, ever-changing, and inquiry, adapted, messy, inclusive, questions, relaxing. So far, 4 words stand out: fun, senses, playing in the dirt, exploration.
So all of these things that you've said connect to why nature-based learning is so important. And as I'm going to get into when I go to chat with you about it, the way that I look at it is that when we're doing this very important work with children, we're connecting head, heart, and hands.
Okay.
When we think about, oh, go ahead.
Okay, then we go back the slides, and I will leave there. Everybody, you can keep on typing, right? But that's fine. We're going to talk about what does research say about nature-based learning. So I did some research evidence shows that nature-based learning happens in natural setting, also happens in the built environments, where elements of nature have been brought into, such as plants, animals, and water, and even the other natural stuff brought into the built environment. That's where nature-based learning happens. The students learn from nature, with nature, about nature, and in nature. So think about this type of learning includes learning about the natural world, but extends to engagement in any subject, skill, or interest while in natural environment or in natural setting. So it's not only about learning about natural world, also learning about subject, learning about develop skills, and also about evoke interest for young children. So what about what does the theory say about nature-based learning? That's very interesting. So connect this learning to the theory. It connotes 4 pillars of nature-based learning about place-based education, experiential education, the first people of principle learning, outdoor education. So when we talk about place-based education, so normally it uses the natural environment, the local resources as the foundation for the study of all subjects across the curriculum. So when we think about experiential education, we need to use experiences and focus reflection to engage students to develop skills, to increase their knowledge. The students not just only doing the learning activity, they need to find a way to reflect or process in their mind and what they have learned. So the first people of principle learning, this one provides indigenous perspective and a way of engaging with the learning process that's very critical for students. So for the young students, it supports them to look at the nature, to explore nature from an indigenous lens and see the interrelationships between self and the natural world. So outdoor education obviously to provide the outdoor spaces, outdoor opportunity for students to learn new skills. And that's very important for them to develop physically, mentally, and cognitively to connect with nature and foster resilience and problem-solving skills. So next one, I will pass to Patricia, talk about why action research. I'm going to put a video on. So you are going to talk about the action research process.
Okay, so this is a video to explain why action research is important. It's actually something that teachers tend to do very naturally and educators do very naturally. You're probably already doing it and you may not even be aware. What I've done is I've also put the link in the chat room if it's not clear as we're presenting. Hongli is going to play it for us, but just in case, the link is on the side. So if you could focus for the next 4 minutes, that would be lovely. Hongliang, can you stop it for a second, please? Does anybody else have sound?
You
Can
might
you
want
hear?
to double check your settings in Zoom. You have to, every time you put a video on, you need to enable the sound.
So there's no sound for other people. Everyone else is watching it on YouTube, I think.
Okay.
I think my side, this sound, it's okay. I set up
It's not coming
everything.
through though.
So shall we try again? Patricia?
I'm going to say no because what other people have
Okay,
is they're watching it separately.
okay.
Come in.
Okay, we go back to, I go back to the slides. And Patricia, you are going to talk about the action research process.
I'm going to give people another minute because most
Another
people
minute, okay, because
had to watch it differently.
Okay, I don't know what happened, but I set up all the audios and then even video audio, they all okay from my side. Do you think this still need more time?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, take your time, finish, watch that, and think about it. Why do we need to do action research? We are in our classroom and on nature-based learning.
Okay. Thank you
Alright.
to everybody for adapting. And as it happens in the classroom, so it happens when we're presenting too, that we have to be adaptable. And I appreciate that you watched it on the side. I learned that the hard way in a staff meeting last week. Okay, when we're talking about action research, usually the reason why we go to action research is because it's something that we've observed. So we're observing something, often it's a problem or something that we see we need to fix in our practice. And so we take a look at it and we reflect on, okay, how might I take action about that? And then we start to plan. And we plan a program, or we plan to implement something, or we plan to put in a change. We put that change into action. We collect the data from what that action looks like, and we observe again. And with action research, it's actually like a spiral. So wherever we start, it continues and it doesn't stop. And as time goes on, what you'll find is as you add in one thing, it might change, but then as you reflect and you observe, you might need to add in a second thing. Or as soon as you add in that first piece, what you may notice is it changes something else. And so what it actually does, action research, is it makes us accountable to ourselves and accountable to our students. And what we end up doing is constantly being in that reflective practice that's really healthy to be in and grow as an educator. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So right now, use the chat to share your thoughts and idea about the video. You watch it and think about it, why action research happened in the classroom. So Patricia, you monitor the chat. On my side, I don't see the chat.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah.
So if you want to put in any thoughts that you have about why you might want to do action research in your class, what that might look like, or what questions, thinking about your classroom right now, what would be something nature-based that you might want to put into action research? Okay. We don't have any questions as of yet.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one, Kathy. How do we get more of the team on board? I'm going to come back to that one because that's a really, really good question. Mm-hmm. And I just finished up some leadership stuff that talked about that I'm happy to share with you. And how do we get more people to be outside? That's a big deal.
That's a really good one too. because not everybody wants to go outside. Yeah.
I appreciate Sarah's too. Sarah said yes. And how do we get administrators on board? I'm going to answer that question as well. So I'm going to write these questions down because those are good questions.
Okay, yeah. So when you're done, let me know, then I move on to the next slide.
Okay, so I'll record those if you want to start sharing your practice.
Okay. So I'm talking about my action research in my classroom. Why do I need to do my action research? So my action research topic is a nature-based loose parts play in connection with the 4 friends of the kindergarten program 2016. This is the Ontario kindergarten curriculum. And then because I have a lot of issues, and I work in the urban city school. So when we work in the urban city school, we have a lot of things to think about it, like the urban density and construction issues, and the shrinkage of nature and the green space. Obviously, students lack the natural environment and green space to play around outside. When they go outside, where are the nature space and environments for them? Because they all see the high-rises building and then construction around the school. And also the students' lack of things to learning inside, have limited access to explore natural loose parts, real-world learning indoor. So that's an issue we face. We talk about it. Then how we do it, so it came up my key research question: how can I infuse nature-based loose parts play with the kindergarten students in learning in connection with the 4 friends of kindergarten curriculum? So we need to find the connection and you incorporate nature-based loose parts play in the classroom to facilitate the kindergarten students' learning. So from the curriculum, we noticed from page 105, 104, and we noticed that the outdoors is integral learning environment. And also we found what does nature mean to us? And it means 3 components in this curriculum. It's about observe nature, explore nature, and appreciate nature. So I took some actions. That's what we call action research. So the first action, so I bring in outdoors in to let students to explore. I started to do setting up an invitation for environmental learning, and the students create and design through nature-based loose parts play. The natural material evokes students' interests, come up with their ideas of nature inquiry, and we also bring plants in to cultivate each student's inner naturalist as well. More important, we create a nature detective space and a center in the classroom for observation, exploration, and discovery. Once students get a sense of idea about the nature and what it means to them, then what are we going to do? We take learning outside and have an outdoor nature play opportunity for them. We investigate the changing colors of seasons throughout the year. In particular, in winter, we explore nature with snow or without snow. And then we found that when we do planning, we need to think about indoor and outdoor half and the other half. So here's a research built in say that outdoor is a half a whole, within the inside being the other half. It is much easier to plan if 2 areas are seen as integral, not separate. If the 2 environments are viewed together, then the planning needs to be viewed as such. And then based on the first action research cycle, I do reflection, I do replanning, then I replan and start the second cycle. The second cycle with an environmental inquiry about gardens, plants, and a butterfly by adding more new loose parts students create and design the gardens, come up with different idea with their prior experience and knowledge. So such as nature garden they design, butterfly garden, plants garden, and vegetable gardens. We extend our learning and thinking and growing from roots and scrap and learn how the plants grow inside the classroom, and also raising butterfly in an exploration of life cycle. So from indoor to outdoor, we explore nature through senses, to learn different things, and to investigate worms and study worms, what the roles of the worm in the soil, in the ecosystem, and also study butterfly outside. We have already raised the butterfly inside, then students study outside to see how butterfly as pollinators flying from one plant to the other plant, from one flower to the other flower. But most important things, we did a play-based learning. So use local park. It's play-based learning, like use local natural environment and use local resources to connect their all subjects, like such as early literacy, early math, and science, and environment art. In all, I think I completed 2 action research cycles. Students explore nature-based loose parts through play, indoor and outdoors, to learn, grow from nature, in nature, and with nature. So Patricia will talk about her action research in her classroom.
This is my 4th year doing action research with OISE and TDSB. And over time, my question has changed. So at the very first, and I've also changed schools actually in the 4 years. When I began, my question was, how do I deepen children's connection to nature to encourage stewardship? I was at a school that had, can you go back?
Okay.
Go back 2, please, to the very first one.
Okay.
Go back. Yeah. I was actually at a school that had a very, very rich natural outdoor play. But what I found was at that school, our whole focus was it was a Waldorf pedagogy, and it was head, heart, and hands. So connecting your head to your heart and your hands by taking action. And so what I found was kids were very head heavy. They had lots of knowledge about nature. They could name trees, animals, species, etc. But they were not kind to animals, and they were not kind to the nature that was growing around. So they would still break trees and pull flowers, all the things that kids typically do. And I didn't see it centering in their heart. I was about 1.5 years through when this started to really change, and I started to see kids act in a very different way and take a very different action. And within that action, what I started to see them do was to advocate for the trees, to advocate for other things. So that was my first cycle, and I ended up leaving that school. So I took my question to a new school. And just to give you some context, one was a very urban, my first one was a very urban downtown school, lots of concrete, big buildings around us, very little nature. Kids that, although they had this knowledge and it was part of the program, they didn't have a lot of exposure to green space. Then I moved schools to an area that was very rich with green space. But the problems were very, very different. Next slide, please. So when I went to this school, although children had beautiful yards, lots of green space, children were anxious and upset about playing outside because they'd never had an opportunity. They didn't know what unstructured play looked like. They had no chance to run around with bare feet. They had no chance to climb a tree. They had never played with mud. And they thought it was dirty. Their parents thought it was dirty. They thought that there were germs in the ground. I had a lot of arguments with parents at first about what I was doing and why their children were coming home so filthy. And when children had limited access to risky play, they also didn't have a lot of problem solving. And so what I found was there was a lot of arguing, there was a lot of issues around social skills because they had never, ever developed resiliency. And they really lacked that confidence to play outside. So as I said, in year 1 and 2, my question was, how do I encourage children's connection to nature, loose parts, bringing nature inside? We went and looked for snails. We brought snails inside. We built snail habitats. That developed a whole great snail inquiry. At the time I was teaching grade 1. And what ended up happening was we ended up doing research. All of our writing was about snails. Our measurement and math became about snails. Everything in the curriculum became nature-based and what we were learning. And until that point, my program didn't really take off. So when you can bring that nature piece and inquiry piece into the classroom, it really expands what kids do. And so through that action, what I was watching was how that deepened their learning and how it deepened their stewardship within themselves. Then, as I moved to this new school, and I'm now in year 4, so through last year, and then we were partly robbed because of COVID, and then this year, it's more about what outdoor experiences are necessary for nature connection. Because although we have this green space, unless kids have a chance to play with it and do things in it, then certain things don't happen. And again, this leads to my bigger overarching question: does outdoor learning and nature-based experiences encourage future stewardship practice and lifelong nature connection? Okay, next slide, please. So, action 1, you need to get parents on your side and you need to teach the parents well. So the very first time, particularly at this new school, I met with parents, I shared my photos of what kids are capable of. So whether it was playing in puddles, whether it was being really, really muddy, climbing a tree, I expressed who I was and what my passion was, and that this is what I was going to do with their child, and that they had to trust me. I shared the benefits of outdoor learning, how it would help their child's mental health, how it helps with physical development of gross motor skills, of fine motor skills, how it helps them with reasoning and planning about how to move, as well as the resiliency and the social skills piece. So when kids learn how to play outside in mud and in water and building things, their social navigation and problem solving is far better than it will ever be on a piece of playground equipment, because they learn teamwork naturally and they learn how to problem solve without adults having to intervene. And through that, they also learn that dirt is good. If you want parents on your side, one of the things that I told them as a fun fact was, inmates in jail get more outdoor time than our children do in school. And if you want to hear a pin drop in a classroom, I highly recommend that statistic, because it will make them rethink what they know and why outdoor learning is so important. Our motto, our motto, and now our principal says it, so I think it was Sarah's comment about how do I get an administrator on my side. So one of the things that I did was I said to parents, rain, snow, or 20 below, outside to play we will go. And as we have people from across Canada on this call tonight, we do go outside when it's negative 28. Mm-hmm. It's just what it is. We tell the kids to dress properly. I do a clothing drive to make sure that we have extra snow pants, boots, rain pants, jackets. I ask parents for clothing racks to put over the heaters in my classroom when their clothes are wet, so we hang them up when they come in. The kids have just learned how to adapt. And it's really incredible, because on the days that we can't, because every once in a while it's really, really rainy or really, really too cold to be out for any length of time, they're begging for it. They want to be outside. And you establish this expectation early. Okay, so all weather play, You're on to parents about it. You're on to the kids about it. You are telling your administration that's what you want. That's what you need. And somebody had asked, how do you get that with your team? When you model it and they see what other kids are doing, the kids will start to talk about it too. But I do find there's a difference between teachers who are willing to go out in the outdoor wet and teachers who aren't. And you can't force somebody who's not interested to take that step. Okay, next slide. Action 2. So once you get the parents on board, then it's all about the outdoor play and loose parts. So again, what I would say is start small. You can't give them everything at once, and you want to start with things that are manageable. So I generally start with tree stumps, sticks, and small, tiny rocks, not big, heavy boulders, small, tiny rocks that they can move, because when they're smaller, that is just as interesting to them, small world play, as large things. And you teach them how to use them well and manage their risk. Do they feel safe? Are they having fun? And if they can answer yes to both of those questions, then they are managing their risk. Okay, you discuss how the materials can be used. So treat the things the way you want to be treated. We treat people the way we want to be treated. We treat trees the way they want to be treated. We talk about that and the materials. We set up provocations with the loose parts to teach new skills. So before they arrive in the morning, I might take some stumps out and arrange them as an obstacle course. Or this picture here of the little girl and little boy that made the teeter-totter out of the fork in the tree, you know, just having it there available leaning up against the tree is inviting. And then they'll figure out what to do with it. And then after we've had a lot of that is when we connect to the outdoor learning and loose parts, to the literacy and math concepts. And if you want, you can bring in books. So This Is Not a Stick is a great one to start with, especially if you're talking about using loose parts, or This Is Not a Box if you're going to bring boxes into the environment. And also just to show them some pictures of land art. So Andy Goldsworthy's great. If you have a collection of small things, because you don't have a big playground, they can make nature mandalas and do lots of great things. Next slide, please. Okay, when they have all those great things, then it's time for risky play and problem solving. So what I've noticed through my action research is children will not do anything they're not comfortable with. So as I said, do they feel safe? Are they having fun? Those are the questions, but they won't put themselves into positions where they feel uncomfortable. It takes them time to develop that risky play. So you're going to have children that are timid in September. What's amazing is to see how much their confidence grows, their gross motor skill grows over time. And as I said, as they develop confidence and experience failure, and I also talk to parents about how important it is that their kids fail. They need to fail. They need to pick themselves up off the ground and try it again. Then their problem-solving skills grow. Their willingness to persevere increases. Their willingness to work with somebody else to solve the problem improves. And then once children have had those connections with nature through movement and problem solving, also the self-regulation improves, the social skills improve. And I would say this isn't only the case in early years. I watched it in grade 1 and I've seen it in grade 2 and in grade 3. But when we start in kindergarten, it has the greatest impact and can follow through the other grades. So it's kind of like a foundation and really good roots to plant when they're in kindergarten. Next slide, please. These are just a couple pictures of what kids have built in my playground with large loose parts. And as I said before, you invest lots of time for free play and problem solving before you teach the curriculum. So that's my experience of what I've learned through action research. I know that I need to do these things before I can get them to appreciate nature and what nature has to offer. So if I do lots of this, then I can get kids to go into a sit spot. We can now sit for 5 to 10 minutes quietly in our own space, listening for birds, listening for animals. And we're pretty fortunate because we actually have a fox that comes to visit us in our schoolyard, and the kids know to sit quietly and the fox walks through and they get to have that observation opportunity. Next slide, please.
Okay, just hold on.
And then, like I said, when you've spent lots of time playing in nature, then learning with, about, and for nature happen naturally. So from the slides, I have a little boy that's practicing his name with sticks. We can do a number line and I can mix the numbers up and they can go and find loose nature parts to do quantity and matching it with the numerals. Having something as simple as magnifying glasses available to them, and then opportunities for them to go and self-regulate. So this little girl is practicing mindfulness because she was really upset and told her friend off. So this was her way of putting herself back. If you know zones of regulation, she was putting herself back in the green zone so that she could then apologize. Okay.
So you're going to talk about this one, give them a few moments to read all those. What does practice say about nature-based learning? You connect with students. So we'll give you a few moments to read it. And then we're going to introduce to you to breakout room to talk about it, sharing and discussion. Patricia, do you think, do they get enough time to read about it?
I think we can give them probably another minute just to think about it.
Okay.
But because of how few of us there are on this call, I think we can actually switch it off. And if they want to put their cameras on, then we can have an open discussion.
Okay.
Or like the question and answer, but also to talk about this. Just being aware of the time.
Sure. Let me watch the time. So we still have 15 minutes, but we have a breakout room, right? And also question and answer part.
But I'm saying we don't need to do the breakout room.
Okay, sure.
Because they can just do it this way because there's only 13 people. And I think it's really important that we learn from each other because some of their comments in the chat room are important for everybody to hear.
Okay, so let's move on this one. So we are going to QA part. Let me introduce this one. So after we have a QA part, you take a few minutes to fill in the form. It's 3, 2, 1 reflection form. It's on the chat. We put it on the chat, and you put your answer there, and to help us move on and help you move your experience next time. So 3 things I have learned, 2 questions I still have, and 1 challenge I faced. And also have resources, all the resources, and you have a link, it's a PDF. It's all the PDF link, so you will get it. And once you click it, you will see all the resources on the slides. Then I show you a few, I show you things. Loose parts play and learning, and also outdoor play and learning, and also action research video resource. All the resources you can take it home and find some really good lesson plan or activity you can implement in your classroom. So let me stop sharing and go back to the main room and to see.
Okay, if you would like to turn your cameras on, then I'd really like to discuss some of your questions that you had that you put in the chat room, as well as Jane's comment, because I think Jane made a really powerful comment to share with you. So hi, Kathy. You had said, how do we get more of the team on board to be outside? And I think I answered a little bit of that in my presentation. I think I don't know how big your kindergarten team is. My kindergarten team is 2. I have some other primary teachers who join me, not the other kindergarten teacher. The other kindergarten teacher has been encouraged and has been voluntold to come out to be with us. But because it's not something she feels passionate about, I don't see it the same way with her or with her kids. So I think if you do a really good job modeling, or you can get one other class teacher, etc., on board with you, you can build a movement, but really the person has to be passionate about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm in the early years, and I own and operate a before and after school care program, and we are all weather. We are the same. We go out, rain, shine, -20, like we're outside. But what I'm having a hard time, I guess I don't want to use the word convincing, but I really feel like I'm trying to convince other colleagues that, you know, they're so determined to decide what the weather looks like by just looking outside. Oh, it looks cold out there. No, we'll stay in today, right? And so I guess it's more of, it wasn't for me or my colleagues that I directly work with, but certainly other practitioners, other people that are just not sold on all weather experiences.
I think if you were to do this with your staff and over time you collected data, because pictures are really, really powerful of what your kids do. I'm not a social media person, but if you are a social media person and you have Instagram or you have Twitter and you share those pictures of your kids outside on a rainy day making a shelter, or, you know, the snow fort, and maybe they've dug it out and they're inside of it, etc. I think you'll get buy-in that way, because when people see that and they see other people's comments, or maybe what parents comment, or even, I mean, another great thing that's worked for me is taking small videos of the kids and putting it together almost like a little commercial of them advocating for the right to play outside and sharing that with other colleagues. That has probably been more powerful than me saying something.
Actually, we did.
Yes. Someone asked resources, so I put the presentation resources PDF link there, and also refreshing Google form link. You take a few minutes to fill it in. So,
sorry, I just wanted
any question? We still have 9 minutes.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I think sometimes when we listen to PD or we read things and then we go, oh, wow, I really want to do this. But then it's actually like, what does it look like? What are the logistics, and what are the materials, and how do you introduce it to the kids? So sometimes, like you said, making a commercial, when you see other people doing it, you're like, oh, I never thought that it could be that easy, or I could do it that way. And I think that sometimes is the obstacle, is you have the wish to want to do it, but then sometimes how do you get to that point? And so I think having like sessions like this, I find even just now a few ideas you've shared have triggered something for me as well too that I never thought of. But you're right about getting people on board. If it's personal, and we have to have them realize, you have to think from the child's perspective. Does the child need it? Not do you need it? You're there for the children, even though, and I know that's hard to talk to your colleagues that way. So
I would also say you start small. Like, I can tell you that if you were to come and see my kids in full play at this stage of the year, you might be really, really blown away and like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. But had you been there in September, they just had chalk and sticks. So it's really a matter of building that practice up, because you also need to build the children up. And I expect them to clean it up. So whatever we take out, they're responsible for helping to put back. And it takes time to establish those routines and safety pieces as well. Sarah had asked, how do we get administrators on board? So I've had some administrators that have been incredibly open-minded and said, I trust you, you go out and do whatever you want. I've had administrators that have been good with me, but my teaching partner, so the other kindergarten teacher, has tried to do something, but they didn't take the time, and somebody's gotten hurt. So somebody had asked, do we need like a risky play permission form? Nope, never done it. Never had to do it, to be honest. Like, I talked to the kids about it, and I'm old school. I still give timeouts. So if you're not using the material properly and you're not safe and you hurt somebody, then we're going to have a very serious conversation about our rule. And we really only have one rule, which is treat other people the way you want to be treated. And if you hurt somebody with the stick, then guess what? You can't have the stick right now, and you need to go have a think about how you would like to treat that other person, how you would feel if you were hurt, and what are you going to do to make it right? And I think
Elizabeth, oh, sorry. So Elizabeth raised her hand.
Yep.
It's just remind you.
Okay, shall I go ahead then?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the work that you've been doing. It was really interesting. I'm a PhD researcher, so I was kind of interested in your experience of action research, and I wondered if or how you've shared your research. Are you, have you considered publication, or what other means to share what you've been doing?
So I'm going to let Hongliang talk first, and then I'll talk second.
Okay. This one I can talk about it. So when my first year I did my action research, it's about nature-based loose part play in connection with the kindergarten curriculum. So I finished the 2 cycles in 1 school year. I connected all the data, research methods. It's quantitative research. So at the end of the school year, I analyzed all the data. I wrote it up and I revised it and spent a lot of time on it, especially after we finished the cycles. Then I finished all the papers and revised them many times. And then I submitted to the journal. So right now in the process. So this is my first paper. My second paper is about the nature journaling. I have already written it up and revised it, and I'm going to submit it to the second journal, but different from the first one. So every year I adapt the environment, the research context, and then I changed the approach and how to incorporate nature-based learning in my classroom and even at my school. It just increased different approach to do that. So this is my second paper. Right now it's in the process too. So my third year action research is this year. I think it's a little bit complicated because it's mixed in-person learning and online learning. So data connection is involved in person and remote learning. So right now I'm in the progress, and it's this one. I changed the approach again based on the research context situation because this year pandemic affected the whole things. This year I integrate land-based learning in connected with nature, how the younger students look at the nature and in connect with the land in an indigenous perspective way. So this is my third year. I think this is what I have done the research, and I have done 2 papers. So then Patricia, you can talk about yours. Yeah.
I have not written a paper. I'm not particularly interested in writing a paper. I find it much more powerful to do these kind of things, and I actually get asked to do them a couple times a year. So I've presented at the Eco Schools Conference twice. I presented at ESAC, which is the Environmental and Sustainable Action Committee in Toronto with TDSB. I've done a COYO conference, which is the Council of Outdoor Educators. I've presented at Natural Curiosity in the fall about this practice. I present within the board to other teachers. And now because of word of mouth, I get asked to come in sometimes to private schools or other things to show the different work that kids do and then what comes out of it. So sometimes they're not always interested about, they're interested about where outdoor learning can go and then what that can look like in the curriculum in terms of the work that kids produce. I just wanted to comment on something that Jane had written and to answer, I think I accidentally answered Elise's question, but I was trying to answer Beth's question. So let me answer Beth's question quickly. Beth asked, how long do we spend outside? So typically in my practice, we spend 1.5 to 2.5 hours outside every day. And usually it's the first hour, 1.5 hour block of the morning. And then we go out in the afternoon at the end of the day. Hongliang, how long are you outside for?
For my current school, yeah, I know I have 1 minute, that's fine. So my current school, we spend most of the time outside because of the pandemic, but average half day outside, half day inside. But if the weather is all good, if it's not about pouring, we're almost all day long outside.
And I just want to comment on Jane's question before we go. So Jane made a really good point when somebody asked, how do I motivate other people? And one of the things Jane said, and I wrote this as kind of a summary, was that you need to build the culture. She said it really shouldn't be reliant on just one teacher. So if one teacher leaves, the outdoor learning program should not fall apart. Jane, was that your idea?
Yeah, it's a question of momentum. When I did my practicum project, I worked with the reserve in northern Manitoba, and they would have some great programming go on, but teachers on the reserves would typically come for like a year or two and then come back to Winnipeg. So the students couldn't keep up with the programming.
Right. So I think it's, as you're building the capacity within the students, you also need, as I said to Kathy, to try to make a buddy on staff so that you can get that momentum and so that you're not alone. Because sometimes being alone is really, really challenging. And I think that's also why I tend to present to other teachers, because I want to know what other teachers are doing. And I think it's more powerful to see that. And then you have that opportunity every once in a while to reach out, like you could reach out back to me, you could reach out to Hongliang and say, what do you think about this? Or how do I do this? Or have you ever encountered this?
I feel so bad that I have to jump in here because of the time. And
that's okay.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's just, it's, you know, and this always happens, right? I mean, some amazing conversations coming on, and I'm sitting here chuckling with some of the comments that you're making because I've seen this, you know, in schools. I work with teacher candidates and hearing some of the reasons why you can't take children outside and, you know, all of those things. It certainly is a cultural thing. And so on behalf of Ecom, we want to thank you so much for the amazing presentation. And I know that everybody in the session tonight has gained a lot of valuable ideas and probably are going away with more questions maybe than they started with. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experiences, and also for sharing your resources with us at the end. So again, thank you so much for sharing. And it's I've made all sorts of notes myself here that I'm going to take back to my teacher candidates. So well, thank you, everybody. Please make sure that, you know, if you want to fill out their form, and also thank you to Chris for helping to moderate this session. So hopefully everybody got the link to the presentations in the chat box.
Yeah, please cut and paste reflection form in your browser and take your time and fill in and send it to us to help us prepare next workshop for everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for your participation.
And enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. See you tomorrow at a conference. Bye-bye. Yeah.